Hello and happy Memorial Day. I'm John here, your host on the Prepared Mind channel. Doing a little exercise. As you can see, I've got a little sunny day. It's been weeks, literally weeks, here in now sunny Northern California. We've had nothing but rain, cloudy days, windy, blustery, certainly non-seasonal type weather. But, we got seasons for other things. And one of the seasons we've had, and that has also been dragging on, has been this season of war. And it has been encouraged or precipitated by the season of stupidity, intolerance, greed, avarice, ignorance, hatred. What am I talking about? I'm talking about war. I'm talking about the way nations behave, the way militaries think. And I'm picking on everybody. Nobody gets a fucking pass from me on this. Everybody seems to have a problem with leaving others alone. So, we've got an article down below you can read and get some details if you wish. But it has to do with the threat. The threat of not just regular war, but nuclear war. Now, I'm a product of the Cold War. I grew up, through the 70s and 80s under the threat of nuclear annihilation between the United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the USSR, that's since crumbled and been replaced by, Russian Federation. But let's take a look. What are we looking at now? We're still looking at the threat of nuclear war, except Hillary Clinton isn't the president and she can't keep blaming Russia and trying to instigate that war. But we have something that's far more possible now. Now it is more possible than ever for nuclear war, because nuclear arms aren't just held by England and France, Germany, the USA, Russia, and China. And in fact, these other nuclear nations I'm going to discuss, they've had nukes for a long time. I'm talking about Israel. I'm talking about Pakistan. I'm talking about India, right? In particular, the former two, India and Pakistan. They have been at war with each other. Just like other regions of the world, they just can't resist always screwing with each other. Always making demands. Making life difficult. I mean, it's just, what prompts people to maintain such a hate-filled attitude? It's beyond me. You would think with time, some applied intellect, we'd get over it. But that's not the case. India and Pakistan have been fighting in the Kashmir district for a long, long time. Except, like all wars that are that seem to occur, they're exacerbated by one common thread, and that is economic difficulties, hardship. We're slipping into a global recession. Both India and Pakistan are considered emerging markets. That is, when the rest of the first world does great, they benefit because of their products, their labor, their expansion, their participation in the world economy. And then when the world starts to slow down in first world emerging markets, like India and Pakistan, they are some of the first to feel it, because a nation like the US or China will pull back its currency. It'll pull back its trade and keep it within its borders to keep itself alive just a bit longer. So these other nations are going to feel it first. And so they've already got problems, like all governments do, with maturity, with the ability to pick and choose what is a real problem and what is someone's pet project, or personal ambitions and thirst for conquest, right? They're fighting in the Kashmir district over claims to that land that go back thousands of years. Much like what? Palestine and Israel. You know, who owns that land? How long has that fight been going? How long is the hatred? They can't let it go. It's because of their ignorance. It's because of their unwillingness to learn, to forgive, to forget, to move on, to cooperate. Instead, we deal with the opposite of all those things. Now, the deal with India and Pakistan is not only are both of those nations nuclear, but they have both large nuclear devices as well as small tactical nukes. One of the problems with small tactical nukes is they're not as heavily controlled and regulated by the central government. You know, they play a little faster and looser with them because they're deployed up on the front lines. Once again, you know, doesn't matter who starts it. Let's just say India was the first one to move tactical nukes up front. Pakistan followed. It could have just as easily been the other way. It could have been Pakistan was the first to move nukes to the front. You know, these tactical nukes. And then India followed. It just doesn't matter. The fact that they're both there, they both have nukes, they both have tactical nukes, they both have a belief that they are correct, that their country is right, stands on the side of morality. But what part of morality? What part of morality says let's kill everyone else? Let's poison the land. The older I get, you know, the harder it is to believe that humanity can't learn its lessons. In my lifetime, I've learned quite a bit. Why can't they? Just a simple question. Why can't they learn? It makes no sense to me that they're incapable of it. Yet that's the problem we have. That's the problem we face. Now, they're way over there in India and Pakistan, right? That's where they're at. What am I so worried about? Well, let me tell you what I'm worried about. When we have a situation like today where people have economic and military allies, they pledge allegiance with each other. They say things like, I am your ally, and if we go to war, I will defend you. Right? And you're my ally. If I go to war, you'll defend me. And nations pick sides. This is also an ancient practice, right? That rather than saying, look, we're not going to come fight with you because it's a stupid fight to have, instead they say, no matter what, we're on your side. Right? That's the pact. So here we are. There's nations that side with Pakistan. There's nations that side with India. As a result, a wider spreading of the war or a more aggressive implementation of armament can draw in other nations. Right? Draw in other nations. So a battle can grow. You know, it can grow into a major battle. All it takes is a decision by a political or military mucky-muck, upper echelon, high brass, you know, an elected leader, and they can go, right? They can go to something that starts getting the attention of their allies. India and Pakistan have two very big neighbors. In fact, they have three. I'll name Australia first. They're pretty damn close in the region. But you also have China and Russia right there. And to the west of them, you have the entire Persian Gulf, Arabian Peninsula region. You know, the oil zone. But this war has been going on for a while. When you're in the military and you're in your top brass or your top cabinet position politically, you've been there your whole life. And you don't get to stay in politics in any country because you are a good, moral, honest, decent human being. If that was the case, this world would be fixed. There'd be no problems in it. Instead, what do we see? Nothing but problems increasing all the time. So you can guarantee if they're still fighting in Pakistan and India with each other, if they're still at each other's throats, the people in charge on both sides are most likely assholes at each other's throats. They hate each other. Now, the fact that tactical nuclear weapons are on the front line, they're available. They're available for military leaders to implement and use. They're also up there and open to what? Espionage. That's right. The spy game. They can be stolen and used in false flag operations. Those nukes can be taken somewhere else, or they can be implemented right there in the Kashmir district. You know, how does that work? Sure would be nice to know, wouldn't it? But no one really knows. We don't really know who's there, what their plans are. We do know that the deep state, you know, the world's bad guys, they see their monetary, financial, economic system. It is not only falling apart from within because it is faulty because of corruption and immorality and theft, right? But the people of the world are starting to catch on. They're starting to realize that they're being screwed with and duped. And they're starting to see exactly who is at fault, who causes all of these world problems. All it takes is one tactical nuke going off on one side or the other, on the Pakistan or India side. And how hard is it to imagine both of those nations unleashing tactical nukes on each other, and then the larger nukes as well? And if that happens, will their allies move in, at least in that region, and start nuking one another's enemies? Right? Who cares? It's just Pakistan, it's just India. Who cares? Right? Oh, that's on the other side of the planet. Doesn't concern me. Well, it does concern us all. Because believe it or not, we rely on Pakistan and India. We all rely on each other to a certain degree. At least in the name of what? Common sense, decency, and humanity. People should behave, especially when they're entrusted with such massive amounts of power. It would be nice, wouldn't it? It would be nice. But that's the risk we face, is a widening war over there. And it's one that's different than the standard Russia versus US and Russia versus China and Western Europe versus Eastern Europe. It's a whole nother look, and it's a very real one. It's a very real chance because of the way things are declining economically, internationally, monetarily, and militarily. And you combine all of those difficulties with a region of the world where there is no problem with intelligence. They've developed these weapons themselves. Some of it was given to them that they've built their own. Right? These aren't subsidiary bases of the U.S. These are owned, controlled. And ultimately, the determination as to their use of these nukes is by India and Pakistan. And they can, for reasons contrived, or even just the natural exploitation of human thought by those who are evil, to get them to start a wider war. They could end up spreading around the world. So, the idea here, if you're in the United States of America, is to get prepared. Get prepared now. Understand the threats we face will be in that 10-mile radius around us. That's where they'll be. But understand the problems around us at our home can start in countries halfway around the world, literally the other side of the planet. And there's nothing we can do about it, but it certainly can reach out and affect us in a number of ways. So my recommendation is that you get prepared with food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. When shit hits the fan somewhere else, it can come here. Hey, it may take a week. That'd be nice to know, wouldn't it? It may take a month or a couple of months for a conflagration over there to spread. You know, poor diplomacy and saber rattling makes things worse, but it could take a little while. And then again, it could all happen in a matter of days. Letting loose, cutting loose one's nuclear arsenal. You know, those countries could really start a war. It could be a rogue military agent. It could be a false flag operation. Or it could be a political determination that they're going to finally find out who the big dog is in the region. And someone just hits the button. So, there it is. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening to The Prepared Mind. I want you to think about this shit. Check the article out. Share with other people the articles, the content from this channel. People need to understand, right? It's ultimately it comes down to you taking care of yourself. But the problem isn't us. The problem is them. And them is out there somewhere. You know, so we need to be aware of everything. That's why I don't do every video about gear. It's about thinking, understanding, taking in all the information, synthesizing it, and coming up with the proper conclusion. The only one I can keep coming up with is get prepared. That's all I can keep saying, because that's all I can come to a conclusion about. This is what's happening. This is where they're taking us. And you need to be ready, because chance favors the prepared mind. Hasta la vista, vaya con Dios. Godspeed and Semper Fi.